How rare is it to see a picture of Malcolm X smiling? You know what I mean? Like that's humanity right there. That's not a martyr, that's not a figure, that's a person, you know? You walk in, I'm here for my reservation. No, you're not. You're here for an
You're about to
experience.
experience
Right?
yes.
Yeah. My name is Omar Tate, co-founder of Honeysuckle Projects with my wife Sybil St. Aud Tate. Honeysuckle is more or less a return to form, in that Honeysuckle was a pop-up that utilized the fine dining format. Provisions was a pivot from that, where I met my wife Sybil in 2020, 3 years after founding Honeysuckle as a pop-up in the first place. And as the world began to shift and change, we adopted a more accessible idea of our skill sets and talents. We were fortunate enough to find a larger space where we could bring that into full fruition and deliver that experience back to the city. At Honeysuckle, there's two experiences that you can have. One is a la carte, which is like you sit down, you order, whatever you want. But then in this room is the tasting menu. So less seats, less guests, more of an artistic-driven experience. The way you're served is different. The bar is different. This bar is our experimental like ferments and like homebrew kind of place. So the drink that you get will be different. The experience in this space is, yes, we are a restaurant, but Honeysuckle is ultimately a cultural preservation project that utilizes the restaurant format to share stories and to share histories. And that shows up in ways through a dish called smoked turkey necks in 1980s Philadelphia, which was about the move bombing, where there was a smoked turkey neck that was completely coated in black ash. And so when it was on the plate, you couldn't really tell what it was over a bowl of lima beans that were really, really spicy to impart the idea of like heat and explosion and fire. And it was served on a bed of smoking hay. It's like that stuff shows up not just in the food, but in the radical approach that I think we take to running a business. This is we're plotting out our prep schedule for the restaurant and like what days things will be produced and all of that. You kind of walk up to this and you read this and you sit down and you order your food and you realize like, oh, this is that. The way that the menu shapes up happens in many different ways. I think we have these ideas and then it's about the reduction. It's about the stripping away so that by the time it does become a dish or a bite or a note, there's a kind of like minimalism and a focus that you get from ingestation. As much as I'm like, about and always interested in talking about Black culture, I also acknowledge the fact that like, this is not specifically Black. Everyone has people, everyone has ancestors, right? But I do think what is specific about Black ancestry is that it shows and demonstrates that we here, you know what I mean? Because so much about Black life is challenging our presence, trying to erase our histories, trying to manipulate our histories. And Frederick Douglass said that the greatest tool that we have is imagery and photography. There's a specificity around the stigma that people feel when they're engaging with something that is Black American, not necessarily Black Caribbean, not necessarily West African, but African American or Black American. There's a bit of a conflict. And what we are trying to do here is we want our experience as Black people to be as lofted and lofty as the experience of any and other culture. So these are all shards from colonaware. Colonaware was a material that enslaved folks had to make themselves so they actually had something to eat off of. Colonaware has never been found or excavated through archaeological digs intact. This is actually like a poem about the way we have to fragment our full history as Black folks. It's always in pieces, If you're doing genealogy or you're reading about Black history or Black culture, it's never the full story. You have to like piece it together and it becomes whole the more you get to collect. We were connected to this space through a mutual friend. It also happens to be on Broad Street, which is the main artery of Philadelphia. So to be here in North Philly feels not just significant for the city of Philadelphia, but for the 40 48% Black residents that do live in Philadelphia, the way that we're utilizing the space, not just as a restaurant, but as a space for education and community, is the most special thing and the most important part of the experience. And that will happen during your meal, before your meal, after your meal, and any other way people want to engage with us.